Faith on Film, a program designed to keep you aware and informed on what's happening in the world of faith and family entertainment. My guest today, he's here not only because he's a filmmaker, but also he went through a very tough challenge, and that's really what I think I want to make sure that you hear from him today, because he made it through with because of his faith in God. He really made it through. But of course, he is a filmmaker. He loves filmmaking. In fact, here's the proper introduction. Gary grew up on stage in Chicago and got the acting bug at a very young age. When he was 7 years old, he followed his performing sister Debbie to an acting class at the Goodman Theater in Chicago. Although Gary has hosted an international TV show called the Help at Home Live Show for 7 years, does voiceover work and corporate videos, his real love is, of course, film. He has been on set with the likes of, I'm going to go through a whole litany of names here, okay? Of David Fincher, Kevin Spacey, Ralph Winter, Donald Sutherland, Danny Trejo, Orlando Bloom, Colin Firth, Patricia Clarkson, John Rhys-Davies, Tim Conway, Mel Tillis, and his good friend Tom Lester, who played Ebb from the hit sitcom Green Acres. Gary, welcome to Faith on Film, my friend. How are you?
Hey, Jeff, I forgot some of those. I should read that intro.
I did my research on you. And I'm sure there's a whole lot more to add to that. But listen, I know we're going to talk about, I mentioned something about a real challenge that you went through. Yeah. And we'll certainly talk about that, because I think it's important for people to know that life isn't always an easy thing, but because of our faith in God, we can make it through. But first, we want to hear about you and how you even got started in acting, apparently at a very young age.
Yeah, I sure was. Grew up on my first 5 years on a farm, our family farm in Sycamore, Illinois.
Oh.
And I thought I was just going to be a farmer all my life. Mm-hmm. I would ride on the tractor with my dad, and that's all I cared about. But my dad got tired of farming, and so he became an airline mechanic, and we had to move closer to O'Hara in the suburbs there. So we moved. They took me out of the farm. It was the reverse of, of Green Acres. I was now in the city life, and I didn't want to be, but I was. And so I think I started acting, like in second grade. I was in the school play because it was just a great escape from my real life, and I could pretend to be things that I wasn't. And later on, people pay you to do that, and so it was really fun.
Now it says here that you followed your sister. So was she an actor already, also, or?
Yeah, she was an actress, but she was also a professional ventriloquist.
Oh.
And she was really good. I mean, she won top awards nationally, internationally. She was asked to be on all sorts of TV shows, including Johnny Carson. And I would follow her to these TV studios and just watch her perform. And then I'd watch her in plays on stage. And but when we went, my grandma paid for those acting lessons at the Goodman Theater in Chicago, and when I did that, I just caught the bug, and that's what really got me to where I just want to be an actor. And even though I had a tough childhood growing up in the city, I still acted all the way through it, and I loved it. I just did everything stage. There was no camera involved at all. All I did was stage all the way through college.
Oh my goodness! Now, were you a believer at the time?
Yes, I was. It was actually about 9 years old. My mom took me to an all-ladies missionary night at church, and I was the only little boy, and all these old ladies, and I'm like, really, Mom? But she took me, and it was this lady, Kate Friedrich. She was a missionary who went through concentration camps in World War II up in the Philippines. And it was like she was just talking to me. I think she was. I think she forgot about all the ladies, and she saw a little boy talk to me, and she told me these stories. And when we got home, I knelt down by my bed and I asked God to come into my heart and save me.
Oh, wow.
And then I ran into my mom's room and told her. And, although I wasn't a star Christian, that's when God saved me.
Oh my goodness. Now, this is probably not important, but I still want to know, was it one of those events where they were all wearing white?
No.
No, because I grew up in the church, and I remember those women's nights when all the women would wear white.
Wow. Wow. No, I didn't go to that church.
Well, it's okay. So you've been doing all this stage work, and then at some point you went from stage to camera. I guess it was a TV show. You weren't in film yet, right?
No, I wasn't. It really didn't even enter my mind. I was just going to go from college stage acting to professional stage. And I even got some, auditions in Chicago at the Shakespeare Theater, and I was ready to go. But then I married my wife, who I met at college, and she's from Tampa, Florida. And we moved out to San Francisco because we wanted to help a church out there and downtown San Francisco. And so I learned that actors can be very good salesmen because it's a lot of acting. So I was doing well in the business world, but I had this little knot in my heart that just had to act. So my mom bought lessons for me at the Elite Modeling Agency downtown San Francisco to take camera lessons. And it was Jim Bresser. He was the Marlboro Cowboy. He's been in 48 Hours and all these movies. And so he was a top model, and he was a very good actor. And so he knew both worlds. And it took him a whole year to bring me down from stage to camera acting.
Wow.
And it was just so different for me that it took me so long to get, because I'd be yelling at the camera. He'd go, no, Gary, no, small.
Yeah, from what I understand is when you're a stage actor, it's a whole different way of doing it. You kind of overact a little bit in stage, right?
You have to project. You have to act to the last row in the theater. And so that's what I thought I was doing. So I finally, a lot of acting, camera acting, is how you look. If they need a chef, they find a guy who looks like a chef.
Right.
If they need a policeman, this guy looks like a policeman. I look like the grocery store guy. So that's what I did. I did all the commercials for grocery stores in California. And, But it was great training for me. And I could do them in a day. I could take a day off work, shoot the commercial, and get my acting bug out. And so that's what I did. And it was great training for me.
And of course, at some point, you got what it says here was your dream job, which was your own talk show. And I'll tell you what, we're going to take a break right now. When we come back, we want to hear all about that dream job, all right?
All righty.
Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Faith on Film. We have been here talking with Gary about his career in overacting. I'm sorry, I meant going from acting on stage to acting on TV. But then you said you got your dream job. Gary, what was your dream job?
Well, you know what? Before that, I think I did one of the first camera taped auditions. It was back in the early 90s, late 80s. And I did it on VHS tape, and it was for a movie shooting in Tennessee called When Silence Speaks. And somehow, I know I overacted. Somehow I landed this role. It was a big role, and I was thrilled. And then all of a sudden, I was scared to death because I knew I was going to ruin their movie. So I got some lessons from my great teacher, Eric Klein, the Film Actors Workshop in LA. And he really helped me a lot. and I did this movie, and it was the director of that movie called me, and he had just gotten a job to help produce new satellite network called HomeSat, and it was mainly for homeschoolers.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first of its kind. I had fans in Mexico and Canada and all over, and it started out as just a taped program like you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then my producer, who was just genius, Chris Davies in Australia, he said, "No, Gary, we want to do this live." And I said, "You're nuts. I'm not going live." So we did a live show, and we had live emails coming in. We had live phone calls. I would call people at home. We would give away gifts. It was called Help at Home Live. And, I didn't know how to be a host, let alone, a camera actor. So my genius acting teacher says, "Well, who's your favorite host?" And I said, "Johnny Carson." And he goes, "Just copy him." So I tried to be the Christian Johnny Carson. And so I had, there's a zoo not far from here that raises animals for camera work called Hollywild. And so I became friends with the owner, and he would bring, the animals on just like the Tonight Show. And we had a blast. We did skits. I went down to Gatorland. I became friends with them and did shows from Gatorland in Orlando or Kissimmee.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would do shows at my studio up here. And it was just the most fun I've ever had. That lasted about 9 years.
But you still weren't doing films yet.
No. Just that one film. I did do some TV show I hosted for ABC or something, just because I was hosting and I was getting better at it. So I landed this host job. It was just a one-time thing, but it was big for me.
Well, now I read that in 2016 you had the biggest acting career year of your life, but then something happened after that, and that's what we're going to talk about on the next segment. All right. Welcome back to Faith on Film. We are here today with Gary Moore, who, as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, had a rather tough challenge there, just as he was at the pinnacle of his career. Gary, what happened?
Well, 2016, I had just an amazing year acting-wise. I had like 4 movies come out. I was doing extremely well in voiceover, which I don't try to. It was just a side job I started. And everything just seemed to be clicking so great. I had been taking care of my mom for 3 years, and she passed away, which was very tough on me because she was such an encouragement to me and really held me together. But that was very tough. Then at the end of 2016, my Chicago Cubs won the World Series, which was, incredible in my lifetime. But then about this time, around April, late April, May, 4 years ago, I woke up and I coughed up a little blood. And I thought, well, that's weird. I felt fine. And the next morning, I coughed up a little bigger bit. And then one morning, I coughed up a lot.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, well, that's not normal. So I called the nurse, and she said, "You better go to the emergency." And I did. And they ran tests, and they did a CT scan and all this stuff. And it was like one of the movie scenes. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were in an oncologist's office, and she was telling me that I had a very rare non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, T-cell, on and on. It's a whole sentence long. And that it was extremely aggressive. And if I didn't get treatment right away, I had about 2 weeks to live.
Oh my goodness.
And I was sitting there in the office with my wife, and we're looking at each other going, but I felt pretty good. And they said, no. And I had a tumor in my right airway, and they had to take that out right away. She sent me right to the hospital and for my first chemo. And it had to be really aggressive chemo. Yeah, there was some stuff called the Red Devil, and it's like red jelly, and they push that into you, and it's nasty. But I had to have it. I was going to die, and so a whole year of 2017 was me getting chemo and my wife taking care of me, and my wonderful church, Palmetto Baptist Church, delivered meals for months. Not just, like a few days.
Mm-hmm.
They did it for months, and it meant so much to us because my wife didn't feel like cooking. Cancer is so tough. I've lost a sister and my mom to cancer.
Oh my goodness.
And I felt awkward around them, and many people do. They feel awkward around a cancer patient.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what to say. I felt that way. And now I look back and I go, oh, stupid. If you have a family member or if you have a friend who has cancer and you're feeling this awkwardness, just go and be with them. You don't have to say anything. Just go and sit with them. Sit with them through a chemo. Just give them a blanket because chemo is really cold. They keep it in the freezer, refrigerator, and it's freezing going in. So give them a blanket. Music helped me tremendously. Van Diesel, Chris Tomlin, man, they helped me through it. And I told them after cancer, and they actually responded to me, and they were just such a help. Music can be such a help. But that's where I learned a verse in Psalm 3. God is the lifter of our head. Because I was so weak, I couldn't even lift my head. And God is the lifter of our head. He cares about us that much. And man, cancer's changed my life, unfortunately, because after cancer, God healed me tremendously. And you think they live happily ever after. Well, cancer survivors don't. They have a lot of things going on psychologically. And the chemo affected me. It damaged my central nervous system. And now I have this very bad neuropathy all over my body, not just my toes, over my body. And I deal with pain on a daily basis. Some days it's really bad. Some days I feel normal. But it's like the neurologist says, it's like my brain misfires. So I have to take a lot of bad meds that I don't want to take. I had psychological problems. I had PTSD, like soldiers do. I had anxiety attacks, and I had survivor guilt because I survived. And I had friends who didn't survive. And I thought, why am I alive?
Yeah.
I feel guilty talking to their family. But God, I got some biblical counsel. And God helped me through all of them. And that was the only way I'm here today. And my wife and I are here today.
Well, when we are so glad that you are here, I guess it's been 4 years now, and here you are.
Yeah.
And how can people get a hold of you if they want to just, even let you know that they're praying for you or keep up with what you're doing? Because I'm sure that acting has not ended for you, so I'm sure you've got projects that'll be coming up. How do they get a hold of you?
Producer Jerry Wheeler immediately put me in one of his movies with my bald head because I look like a bad guy. So I thank him so much for that. GaryMoore.me is my web page, but also I'm on Facebook and IMDb. I'm under Gary Ray Moore because if you just look up Gary Moore, you'll get the famous Thin Lizzy guitarist, Gary Moore. So Gary Ray Moore.
Gary Ray Moore. All right. Well, Gary, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today and just sharing that that real personal story of yours.
Thank you so much. It's been great to talk with you.
Terrific. Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Faith on Film. What a privilege it was to have Gary Moore on the show today. As you can see from some of the pictures on the screen right now, Gary has had a very successful career, especially in the secular industry, which has really afforded him an opportunity to just be a shining light where there is darkness. I want to encourage you to not only follow him and go to his website and just keep up with everything he's doing, but to pray for him. Because as he mentioned on the program, you know, once you have cancer, your life changes, even though he's been healed, but things are not the same as they used to be. And I know that he would covet your prayers on a daily basis. So just, you know, go to his website. You'll see that on the bottom of the screen as well. And keep up with everything he's doing, and maybe write him a little note and let him know that you're praying for him. Well, also, as you know, I've always told you about Parables TV, and I've asked you to go check it out. Well, unfortunately, Parables TV no longer exists. It was shut down recently, and so it's not going to be available to you anymore. But guess what? There is a new platform that you can go to where you can find a lot of this great content that I talk about here on the show. A lot of great movies, documentaries, reality shows, just a lot of good programming for you and your family. Safe for you to watch, safe for your family to watch. So simply go check out 24flix.com. That's 24flix.com. It's a great platform that you can go to and again, feel safe in watching some of this great Christian entertainment. I also want to remind you to write me at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Faith on Film TV. Well, until next week, take care.